Hi everybody. Okay, so I've decided to make a video on how to use our time right, and also what's our attitude towards work and daily tasks. I got the 9 of buttons for the question. This is what the card looks like. And when I looked at the picture, I was busy for a while with the picture, the card, and what struck me was what we usually do wrong is we feel overwhelmed by our tasks. And I had this friend whose mother always said, when you find something that you have to do it right now. Otherwise, you're gonna regret it. And she was right. So we are overwhelmed, and you can see in the picture all the wands are taller than the man. But I was thinking to myself, what will happen if the man pull out the wands from the ground and lay them flat down on the ground? Then the wands do not look so intimidating, and they're barely higher than your ankle. So what makes sense to me is we should find a way to make our tasks and work be more, it should be psychologically less intimidating to us. And I think this is especially useful for teachers if they're going to teach especially younger children, but I think almost any child or young teenager gets intimidated by work. So if you're going to give somebody a book to read for school, a textbook, and you give them another and another and another, you well know that that book is, or that series of books probably is for the whole semester or for the entire year. Yet when you receive all those books, they look very intimidating. So probably we should find a way to represent, if we are teachers of any kind, to make something look less intimidating. So if you're going to teach somebody something, especially if they're slow learners, teach them one thing at a time. So if you have like this list of names and say maybe there are 15 terms the person has to memorize, teach them one or two things at a time until they get the hang of it, because we need to learn how to learn, and many people don't know how to. And we often forget that a book you start with one page and do it little by little. So in the 9 of buttons, we have the 9 buttons and they've stacked up. So this is what we do when we feel overwhelmed by something. It piles up and it piles up until nothing looks salvageable anymore. You look like you're fighting a losing battle. So maybe one of the things which are, I suppose, are logical, don't let things pile up, because the man emerges from the wands with one wand, but he's also in a remote area. So I'd say, if you can find a way, I don't know what kind of job you're doing, but it's always better to work among people I knew this one guy. He had his study desk or his writing desk in his living room. And I think that if it can work for you, that's a good idea because you don't feel alone. If you go to a remote space, like you work alone in an office after hours, this could be psychologically very intimidating. Some people might find it liberating, others don't. So go to a coffee shop if you can, if the kind of job you have allows it. Sit down and work on your laptop there. It's not going to feel as boring or whatever. So, like I said, if the man pulls the wands or the batons out of the ground and lay them flat on the ground, it looks less intimidating. So we always should find ways to make things look less intimidating to us. So probably you do divide your time up right and use your time right, but you procrastinate because problems look and work look intimidating. Hi, I just moved to another location. There was some kind of machinery or lawnmower or something out there. So what I do when I, for example, learn sonnets, because that's my dearest hobby, I break it down. I learn first the two verses at a time, and then until I've got until I've mastered the first four verses. So we need to learn how to break things down in smaller sections, and this is incredibly important to learn anything in life. And many people don't know the secret of learning, because if you can't break things down in smaller parts or realize that the 6 books I have that I need to work through all consist out of pages, and if you don't take it like that, many people get discouraged. I have a friend that is dyslexic, and he finds it very hard to learn new things, certain things, and I spoke with him over the phone once, and I sent a text message to him, containing a list of terminologies, but because the list is rather large, it contains 8 terms that you have to compare with something else. I think it's 18 terms. He just kind of gave up. But what he didn't realize is that if he just learned 1 or 2 of those terms each day and repeated it, he eventually will know them all. So lots of times, take the tarot for example. There are 78 cards, right, in the standard deck. And people are excited at first about the cards, and when they see how many there are and that they have to learn each card, some people just give up and say it's not for me. Uh, so it's very important to know how to divide your time, because what you can do, and this really works, when you're studying and you've got various subjects, and I know my cousin also does this. She would study something for 10 minutes or 15 minutes and then drop that. Let's say she's studying business economics. She would take a look at it for 10 or 15 minutes or maybe 20 minutes and then just simply drop that and move on to mathematics, and then drop that after 15 more minutes and move on to biology. This was many years ago when she was in school. And it frustrated her parents beyond measure, because this was chaos. I mean, what you doing? I'm studying math. What you doing? I'm studying business economics. But you were studying math just 10 minutes ago. No, but so. But as soon as you've memorized something, say for instance, you're in school and you have to memorize an English sonnet. Say you memorize only the first four verses, and as soon as you've got that into your head, you move on to mathematics. So again, this is laying down the wands on the ground and making the problem or the work, why do I want to say problem, making the work seem much smaller than it really is, because we can get bored busying ourselves with one thing for hours, or we could get fatigued. And the memory just simply doesn't work that way, because I personally may memorize a sonnet in a half an hour and know it well, but then I forget it in 15 minutes again. And if you don't know how memorizing works, it doesn't work the same for everybody, but then you'll think, oh no, I've forgotten it again. But that's not true. You haven't forgotten it. So as soon as you've mastered it, move on to something else, because your mind will be fresh enough to take on something new to learn. And you'll find that you maybe only have to remind yourself a little bit of how that sonnet went to get the hold of it again. Because sometimes our minds just need to rest and absorb the information we've studied. And so often people memorize things and then they say, I've got it in my head, and then 15 minutes later, oh no, I've forgotten it. That's not the case. You haven't forgotten it. It's in there and it's being processed. So this is when we give up, alright? So this is the man in the 9 of batons. He's stacked up all the wands and he's given up because he's not getting anything into his head. And he's procrastinating. So I hope these ideas, this is what really worked for me with memorizing things and dividing my time and using my time right. You need to make things that you have to approach and do seem less intimidating. Alright, thanks for watching. You can find my email if you have any questions in the credits. Comments and questions below. Thank you. Cheers.